So hello, everybody. Once again, my name is Christina McGahey. I'm the Executive Director for Taiko Community Alliance, and this is the first webinar in a new series we're doing called Doros and Cents. We hope you get the pun because Taiko people love puns. This is really talking about all of the financial topics related to supporting this art form. And it's kind of like eating our vegetables, right? Like we don't always want to talk about this stuff, or maybe we push it to the side and never get to it, but it is an important bit of resources and information, and we wanted to start making this accessible to the community. As such, this session and future sessions of Doros and Cents will be recorded, and if you attend the sessions live, there'll also be question and answer with me, as I will facilitate these, at least for this year. So today's topic is about grassroots fundraising, and it's really all about getting started with raising money. So we all could use more money in this art form to support whatever project or concert or whatever we have in the works. And the more you diversify the ways you secure money or do fundraising, the stronger your financial situation will be as a group or as an individual artist. So let's get started. The things that we're going to talk about briefly today, and this is really high level, I will say, for any future topics in Doros and Cents, I'm always an email or a phone call away if you have very specific questions. But in broad strokes, we're going to talk today about what grassroots fundraising is, who can do it, and then share, I think we have 10 grassroots fundraising ideas that you can try to deploy with your own group or with your own community. Then we'll talk about some tips and tricks, and then there'll be a question and answer portion. So first off, what is grassroots fundraising? Simply, it is a way to raise money for your cause or your project that involves mobilizing the local community to support your goal. So typically when they talk about grassroots, that's when the people involved are rolling up their sleeves to do the work, and the people that they are raising funds from are probably direct beneficiaries of the project or members of that community where it's being served, things like that. This term is often confused with grassroots organizations, which are companies, usually nonprofits, that advocate change. And this is at a local, national, or international level. TCA started as a grassroots organization when JACCC was no longer able to sustain the North American Taiko Conference. The Taiko community rallied, right? That was our community, and they wanted to advocate to keep it going. And that is basically why we met in Stanford University and formed TCA as a nonprofit. So there's an organization that could be grassroots, and there's also just a fundraiser or a project, right? That could be grassroots as well. Who can do fundraising in this way? The short answer is you. So any Taiko group or artist is allowed to use these strategies to help them raise money or donations. However, I will put a disclaimer here that everybody's individual tax situation is unique. And so the reporting, the filing of those things, whether or not it's tax deductible for the people donating to you, that is all very specific questions to your unique situation. And we can address some of those in our question and answer portion today. Or again, you can always email me or give me a phone call. But I am not a tax advisor. I'm not a certified CPA. It is always good to do your homework and go to an expert in your area as well. All right, so grassroots fundraising ideas. These are just a hand, there is so many available to us out there, and these are just some of my favorites that we put in like a top 10 list, if you will. And some of these strategies also work online, and some of these strategies are being used currently by TCA. So in the spirit of full transparency, because it's one of our core values, we'll unpack those as we talk about each of these strategies. The first one, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, is a letter campaign. This is when you write to friends, family, maybe your congressman, to basically cast a wide net through snail mail, through a letter, to raise awareness, to encourage donations, or again, to advocate for change that would benefit your group or your project or your company in some way. Now, of course, we've adapted in the modern day. These are not always snail mail. Sometimes this is an email campaign as well, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Here's a Here's an example of a very short, sweet, like just universally generalized personal letter. Okay, so you have a date, you have your dear friends or whatever contact you want to put there, and it says, as many of you know, our, and then insert your event or project, was born out of the need to create art and support culture in our community. While the desire to play taiko, listen to taiko, and share taiko is there, the fact is that this art form can be costly to produce. The good news is that we have a solution. So this is very succinct, it's short and sweet, and it allows the person reading it to help be part of that solution, which is like your call to action that you would want to include in every letter. We plan to raise, insert goal, which is very important, by date, give them a deadline to cover the costs of, and then explain the purposes. The more that market research is done on people who donate or philanthropic organizations, the more it is evident that you have to be really honest and transparent with how you intend to use that money and then make good on that for any donations you raise. And I think that makes sense to everybody, but it's always good to put it on paper too, because there's something about putting it to paper that makes it official. So I'll continue with that. We will raise these funds through hard work and the generosity of our community. You can also put, we will raise these funds through a local car wash, like whatever method you choose to do would be appropriate to put in the letter. Please help us by giving 15, 25, $50 or more. These can of course be changed out based on your needs, but it's recommended by me that you would put suggested dollar amounts in an ask letter, whether that be through email or through like snail mail. And then kindly make your checks payable, insert all that information. Of course, your donation will help again, remind them of the project, continue to share the tradition of taiko, and then your sign off, right? So this is one of those things where you could have like a template letter or email that you really like on file. And every so often when you want to launch a fundraising campaign, you just cut and paste it and refresh the information based on what you need, right? So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what a letter writing, like a brief letter looks like. Now there are pros and cons to every strategy, and we're going to unpack that today too. So with letter campaigns, right, one of the main benefits is that they're incredibly inexpensive, especially if you do it digitally, right? It doesn't cost most folks anything at this point or at this day and age to send an email or a bunch of emails to a contact list. The trick is to have a robust contact list to send them to in the first place. And then, as I said, this letter can also be served as like a cut and paste template that you can delegate to a team of volunteers to distribute to their own networks and make this campaign grow wider, faster. Some of the challenges of letter writing campaigns is typically, especially through snail mail, they have a low response rate. This will vary based on industry and based on time of the year, but the response rate can be pretty low. So if you're planning to raise $10,000 and you're going to write a letter to 100 people and they all, you cannot plan or bank that they're all going to donate $100 to you to help reach that goal. Maybe start with like, if 10% of these people were to donate $1, what could we budget and assume we would get out of this fundraiser? And those are extreme numbers, just to illustrate the point, but it would take some mindful planning on your part to maybe not put that cart before the horse. Also, another challenge of letter writing is that sometimes folks just don't like to ask their loved ones for money. And I acknowledge and respect that's one of the first stumbling blocks for most fundraising campaigns is they just don't want to ask, or they don't think they are deserving of those funds from their networks or their inner circle. And there are different strategies around that, including, right, like maybe delegating that each other's families are reached out to by other members of the group so they feel less awkward. Or we could just do like a role play or a training on how to get more comfortable doing that. The more you do it, of course, the less stressful it becomes. But I do also respect too that another challenge to any fundraising campaign is being mindful of the timing of it. You don't want to be in a situation where you go home for Thanksgiving, for example, and everyone's like, oh, they're going to ask us for donations again, because they do it every time, right? So you just want to make sure that holistically you're being mindful of all of those things as you develop a fundraising strategy. Another example, is script gift cards. So this is something that everyone is familiar with as a gift card, right? But what script fundraising is when you or your group sell or purchase gift cards that will actually earn a percent kickback directly to your group. So that's where the fundraising part is. This type of fundraising is often used by schools, like the scouting organizations, other children's groups and clubs, but we haven't seen it used that much in the Taiko community yet. And I say yet because TCA actually in real time has just set up a script fundraising partnership with Raise Right. And this isn't an endorsement for that platform specifically, but it's basically where, like, I'll use myself as an example. I'm getting gift cards now every month for my local grocery store just to get my groceries for me and my kids. And this is money I'm already spending every month. It's not putting me out any additional. But now, for every dollar I spend, a certain percentage is going back to TCA automatically just by purchasing the gift cards through this platform first and then paying at the register with them. So it's pretty fruitful and it's very like direct real time money raising. We get any kickbacks within weeks of those purchases happening. And the more we grow that team of people that are purchasing gift cards under our umbrella, right? The faster you can see that growing over time. So this is a really great way, especially if there's hesitancy um, to ask for more money from our networks or our audiences or our community, to have them just continue spending as they normally do, but then through this vehicle, you still can raise money and get a kickback. There are benefits, of course, and challenges to this as well. With script fundraising, this can be done physically or digitally, and money is quickly deposited into your account, especially if you set up like ACH or direct deposits. And perk, right? Like your donors that are purchasing these gift cards get a benefit out of it. They're getting whatever the value of that gift card is to go buy things with. So it's a win-win situation. And that's always a fun fundraising campaign when everybody wins, right? One of the challenges, though, of script fundraising, especially if you plan to do physical inventory, is that it can be hard to manage. I have seen many a fellow parent running these fundraisers at a school or like a kids organization who has boxes and boxes of gift cards that they bought in advance in bulk that they're trying to now sell door to door with a team of kids or whoever's selling them. And that can be kind of a pain. So my personal preference is always to lean towards the digital or the automated to make your life easier, unless you really want to do that direct face-to-face selling or interaction for whatever reason with the fundraiser. Another challenge of script fundraising is that not all script products or platforms are created equal. So again, like I'm just sharing transparently that TCA has a partnership with Raise Right, and that was vetted against, a handful of other platforms that offer similar things. The rates are different in terms of like what they get versus what you get. The brands that are represented on each platform could look a little different. So as with anything, I recommend that you just do your homework before you make a decision to partner with any one of these. And the next, excuse me, I'm getting a little cotton mouth, so I apologize. The next strategy for grassroots fundraising is local collabs. So joining forces is always an excellent way to fundraise, right? That's where you get synergy and lots of cool and strengthen your partnerships locally. Local collabs can happen in a variety of ways. The most common one I think everybody's familiar with is like a restaurant fundraising night. So you partner with a local or chain restaurant, and it in the partnership, it encourages a percentage of the sales for that particular window of time or that evening to go to your event or project. So once you lock in that partnership and you set a date, it is then your job basically to promote the crud out of it so that it has high attendance. Because the higher the attendance, the more fundraising potential you have. Bonus is you get to hang out and eat some food at a restaurant too, which anytime I get to do that, I'm all for. As with anything else, though, benefits of local collabs. It doesn't have to be food. So there's other merchandise collaborations that can occur. This is another popular way to see like maybe a limited edition shirt design by a local retailer, or shoes, anything that could be relevant to the scope of your Taiko group's values, projects, goals. You can get really creative with this. You can also partner with a business that aligns to your group's values and missions. So you don't have to pick big box retail if that's what you maybe are cautious to shake hands with, or maybe you want to support. As an example, I had a conversation with somebody this week. Maybe you want to have partnerships with organizations that are also like AAPI representative or AAPI run and operated, right? That's your prerogative in a collaboration project, which is great. Collabs like script fundraising are designed as a win-win for both sides as well. So if there is a high attendance at the local restaurant, the restaurant's going to win because they get all those food sales for the night, and then you win because you get whatever that percentage is you agree to split and divide in the partnership. It also is kind of cool to think that local collaborations can be done online as well. These are, I think, food delivery services like DoorDash are starting to do this more often now, where it's not just a single location of something, but if to-go orders for Panda Express, as an example, I don't know, but at Panda Express for DoorDash from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. happen within this region. It all goes towards this fundraiser, right? So digital ordering can happen in this way too. There are some challenges though with local collabs that I want to make sure everyone's aware of too. Not all businesses, especially like the small, locally owned and operated ones, have the ability to offer really strong collaborative fundraising events. They might not have the capacity or the staff to handle like a huge influx of people, even for one night or one shift. And so you don't want to make a partnership with somebody that could be ill prepared for that, because it's just going to sour your partnerships with them in the future. They might attribute that to you versus just not being prepared, and then it could, instead of be a win-win, now you have somebody that doesn't want to do business with you again in the future. And again, if there's low turnout or impact for the collaboration, maybe it wasn't marketed or promoted enough by both sides, it can also just influence future interest in working together in the future. And that's good, bad, and neutral. It all depends on the situation. Another grassroots fundraising idea is taikograms. So this strategy is the idea that a short taiko message can be performed for a small monetary fee for a variety of occasions or reasons. So for example, we've got Valentine's Day coming up next month. There's also wedding proposals, congratulations for whatever reason, get well soon. This method is especially useful on college campuses, large company facilities, or any place with a density of captive audience members. And the benefit, right, of doing like public taikograms is it can grow your audience base as well, because anyone that sees or hears it is going to want to know, like, what is this? What is this about? Benefits of taikograms, they can set the price based on the amount of people involved, the equipment, like you have a total control over a taikogram. Obviously cheaper taikograms would probably increase the amount you're performing or doing them. So just, it's kind of like that supply and demand question that you got to figure out what's best for your group. You could also, again, gain popularity locally. So this is like having a local news plug, like all this week leading up to Valentine's Day, so-and-so Taiko is going to be doing taikograms. Contact their website if you're interested, right? And bonus is that taikograms can now be done online. I actually recommend doing it this way because hefting equipment to and from, making sure you have the right amount of people all in the same place, given their work schedules and this, that, or the other, could be a logistical challenge that limits your ability to do this in person. But if you're familiar with platforms like Cameo, where somebody is given some notes on what to do with the message that they're sending, then they record what it is and send it to the donor or the purchaser for them to distribute to the recipient. Like, you can do the same thing actually with taikograms and make it logistically way easier to plan and do this en masse to everybody, which is pretty cool. There are some challenges, right? I do recommend learning the rules of any building where your taikograms are being like performed or delivered. You do not want to go into a sound studio that's recording an opera and start playing taiko out of nowhere, unannounced, right, or unplanned. You don't want to be that person in the room. You also want to make sure that whatever travel kit you have is mobile friendly and freely available to the single or multiple players involved in the taikogram. And those are just like manager logistics, right? As with any show. And then a final challenge of taikograms is the bigger the taikogram, the less money you keep. And this is especially true if you pay each player that comes and performs and is part of it for you. So just keep all of those things in mind as you plan out something like this. But I have seen these done for specific events as like a couple weeks long fundraising campaign, and it's quite fun, and you can earn a lot of money this way. Okay, merchandise. So this one is also like a tried and true way to raise money. Taiko groups often use t-shirts, of course, but there is no rule to say that that is the only type of merchandise that you can produce and sell with your logo or any other thing you want to promote on that product. Depending on the sale price too, the amount raised per item can be quite big. So that's, shirts generally at least in TCA's experience the last couple of years, like we would earn like $10 per t-shirt that we sell, right? But maybe if we picked a different product, like I don't know anything off the top of my head, but if we picked a widget, right? And the widget makes us $15 every time we sell one of those. Should we sell that instead or in combination? Those are things that you should talk about as a group or as a planning team. Let me see. Benefits of merchandise. So you can reap the benefit of bulk orders because the more you purchase upfront, the more per each it goes down typically with any supplier. You can also sell in batches online to incur zero upfront inventory costs. And these are with platforms like Bonfire, for example, where they only do on-demand printing of products for you. And that's just one example. There are many platforms that do this nowadays. You can also have merchandise sales happening before, during, or after an event or a show or a concert or whatever it happens to be. So this could be a continual passive way to raise money throughout the year for you or your group. And as with a lot of the other things we've talked about already, you can do merchandise sales online now. I will say with online sales of merchandise, be familiar and talk with a tax expert in your area on what type of taxable liability, sales tax, all of those things you should be mindful of and include in how you sell your merchandise. Additional challenges can include must do homework on the cost of the merch you'll have to produce. In addition to that, there's inventory management, right? Is it all going to be in one place? Is it going to be at other people's houses? Is there space to store all this stuff while it's being sold or not sold? Shipping costs, if you're doing online sales, could also negate like the benefits of selling it online versus in person. So these are things that you might want to take a look at when you think about merchandise. Alumni mixers. So this fundraising strategy can be super fun. Like I'll use collegiate taiko as an example, right? Like you're inviting back old friends or graduates, and it is a great way to strengthen your group's network and also fundraise. Folks can have fun. They can remember the good old days. They can see how they can continue to support the group because they've now physically been in person, face to face with the group still existing. It's very easy when you get geographically distanced from anything to forget that it's there and it still needs love and support, right? But when you bring it all back to center, it can really have a lot of great outcomes. This is a common strategy in fraternal organizations, sororities, and any like club or membership-based groups. And I'm surprised we don't do it more in the Taiko community because I use collegiate Taiko as an example, but there are people that have moved on from just community groups or professional groups that are technically alumni, right, of those spaces too, that could be invited back for special events or for fundraising. The benefits of mixers is that they again can rekindle relationships with past group members. In a way, they can also broaden your audience. Like let's say every alumni is supposed to bring a +1, for example, right? Who doesn't know the group or wasn't part of the group. You've essentially doubled your party capacity and doubled who you're reaching out to in the fundraiser by that simple +1 rule. And again, these can be so much fun. One or two challenges though of alumni mixers, you must make sure that it is clear why the mixer is taking place, and it should be promoted to include others beyond the alumni as well. So I gave the +1 as an example, but generally you might want to include other like key stakeholders of your group, any important members of your audience or your community, or in Collegiate Taiko's case of the university that you would want to include in that as well. And going back to making sure why it is clear that the fundraiser is taking place, I've seen mixers very quickly go from a fundraiser to just a party and a hangout because the message wasn't clear why we were all here. The experience of that party wasn't curated in such a way that it was like, yes, we want to rekindle things, but we also want to remind you, like, we're trying to do this, this, and this year. Can you help us out? And again, often we don't want to ask our friends or our family members or our loved ones for money, right? So it can go very quickly to just being a cop out and be like, well, since we're all together, let's just have a great party. And then you spent all this money to host a party and you've earned nothing in a fundraiser. So just be mindful of that with mixers. Okay, public shows. This is a very commonly used way to raise money in the Taiko community and with Taiko groups. Give your group a chance to perform publicly. This could be in an established community event like a festival, or you can make a standalone performance. Public shows, of course, can be free to attend and accept donations. You can also collect those before, during, and after the performance. You can also do ticketed events as a fundraiser. This, again, is a great direct way to broaden your audience. So I definitely recommend this one. And this is a tried and true way within the Taiko community that already exists. So we know the benefits, right? Gives you audience exposure. It could increase both your audience and your donation base, and your group can raise money without direct asks. You do the thing you love the most, which is playing Taiko, and then money just comes in, right? Like, that's pretty awesome. Some challenges of public shows: as with anything, you must manage performance needs. That includes logistics, that includes paying your team if that's part of your core values and how you structured your group. There could be insurance requirements. If it's in a public space, you've got to make sure you've got all that red tape squared away. And there could also be event restrictions that limit how much you raise. At least here in the United States, how money is raised by groups has state by state unique restrictions. For example, TCA could do a raffle in one state, but not in another, based on the restrictions that nonprofits have when they cross state lines, right? So it just depends. And as with anything, I recommend just doing your homework. So take that 5 minutes to prepare before you start rolling out, like planning a public show. And this idea is the big grand, like, I think everyone associates it with like scenes from movies type of fundraising event, right? It's a gala. So galas have been tried and true way to raise large donations at a single event. Politicians have used this since the dawn of time, but also big corporate organizations will do this type of fundraising too. Sometimes galas perpetuate power systems. So depending on how they're planned, how they're rolled out, again, just be mindful and thoughtful in the planning process before you just put boots to the ground and start working forward with these. Galas are starting to, in my opinion, starting to evolve and reshape themselves because of this final bullet right here. Some benefits: this is a potential to raise a bunch of donations all at once. So if you are a group, for example, that is in a community that is more affluent or more likely to be philanthropic, maybe a gala is right for you. If you're in an area or a neighborhood where this is not an option, we can use any of the other strategies above. But let's say you're in that neighborhood, right, where you have a good contact list of people who have the means and interest to donate big amounts of money. Galas are a really fun way to strengthen the relationship you have with those donors. And also, it increases your credibility as a group, right? I've seen galas, especially during the pandemic, be conducted online. So I'm sure if you Google or do an internet search, there's tons of examples of this out there. But in my experience, in-person galas are the most effective way to raise large money in an event like this. The challenge, though, and this is the key challenge, is that there is a lot of planning and prep work for a gala to be successful. And again, going back to it may enforce certain systems or dynamics that are misaligned to your group or your group's values. So as with any decision a group has to make, they have to, make sure that it is in alignment with what they want to do and who they are at their core. So depending on the nature of the gala, the invite list, how you're showcasing why there is a need for money to be raised, all of those things, right? Just be mindful of how that is relation to your core values of your group. This strategy is auctions. Auctions are fun, right? They're formal, they can be informal, they can be fast paced, they can be spread out over a period of time. They're really flexible nowadays to do an auction. And common auction items typically are physical, they're either services or they're some type of art. Sometimes they're experiences, though, like a weekend vacation somewhere. TCA historically has used auctions at our previous conferences at NATC. In Portland, for example, we auctioned off a Taiko, a beautiful shamisen, and a couple other like physical things that people could win and then walk home with during the course of the conference, which was pretty great. And then during the pandemic, we did a virtual auction that was a lot of like digital things and services and a couple of small handful of physical items that we could easily ship to and from places. The benefits of auctions is you can adapt the format and the style and the need, right, of it. So you can make it online and really fast paced, or you can make it just a passive auction that happens over the course of a couple of months while you're doing rehearsals for a concert or something like that. If it's well promoted, you can also have excellent bidding wars that amplify the fundraising. The challenges of auctions, they can be hard to secure. It does require asking or in-kind giving of a person or a group to secure auction items. And that ask can be done with a letter campaign, honestly, but it can be hard to get that first step forward in the planning of an auction. Also making sure that the money received and the items won are delivered appropriately to where they're supposed to go can be a challenge of auctions, especially if you're working digitally or asynchronously from physical items that you plan to auction and basically sell off. So just keep those things in mind. In general, too, there's different schools of thought about how to structure an auction. Like, do you announce the estimated value of the product to encourage the bidding, or will that discourage bidding once it hits the estimated value of the item? Yes or no? You may have to play with that and just dial in the right frequency of that and what it works for your group and your local community. Because I've seen it done both ways successfully, to be honest with you. It just depends on how it's planned. And those are all of my fundraising strategies for grassroots ideas for today. Again, there are tons out there. A quick internet search could give you a lot of great how-to guides that are freely accessible to the whole Taiko community. And there's no one right way to do fundraising, especially at the local level. You may have something very specific to you in your area that works great. I know that Suzuki Kai Mogan Daiko, my group in Tucson, Arizona, we did a collab once with a local salsa maker. And you'd think that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but everybody had great chips and dip, and we raised a lot of money. So, it just depends, right? But partnering with a salsa maker in another part of the world may not make sense for you and your group. So just think about these things. Get some brainstorming going. My number one tip for anything fundraising is make a plan. Make a timeline, establish what your fundraising goal is, both in dollar and in purpose, and be honest of how you're going to use those funds. Like, have a plan to spend those the way you say publicly, and identify in advance, like, are you going to need volunteers for this? Who needs to be delegated what tasks? For your own sanity, if you do this step first, it makes fundraising a lot more fun and way less stressful. The second thing is to assemble your team. So delegate jobs based on enthusiasm and skill set and how they interact with the public. That would be my advice here, because I'll use my kids. I have 3 kids that are all high energy people, but I have one that's not a people person, so I might not put them like in a face-to-face situation with folks. And I have one that is not too good at numbers, right? And putting those things together. So they might not be the person collecting funds from anybody. So it just depends, right? How you assemble your team is, of course, your prerogative, but those are my suggestions. If needed, you also should probably plan a meeting schedule and plan like milestones or steps of progress in the whole fundraising project as a whole. So maybe you're going to have to meet once a week, or maybe you meet once a month in the planning phase, and then when things go live, you're meeting all the time, right? It just depends. Number 3, have fun. Fundraising can be scary. A lot of people think it is, but I promise it's fun too. Don't forget to have fun when you do this. Number 4, this is a big one that goes missed a lot of the time. Don't forget to say your pleases and your thank yous. And this isn't just to your donors. This is to the volunteers and all the people behind the scenes that are helping make that fundraising possible too. And number 5, discuss if this is worth doing again in the future and also how it can be improved on. So a lot of people kind of ride the adrenaline high of having a successful fundraiser and they've just made all that money and now they got to spend it on all the stuff they said they were going to spend it on. That's really great. But in the heat of the moment, kind of reflect like, okay, this went really good, but maybe we market it this way next time because we had a little issue with XYZ or whatever. If you forget to do the evaluation part, you could fall victim to making the same mistake if you duplicate it again in the future, or you don't learn from that lesson and then you try a different fundraiser and it's an even bigger consequence where it might have been small in this first pass of fundraising. So those are my tips and tricks and some general, like I said, I think there might be 11 in here, but top 10 grassroots fundraising ideas. And now I'm going to open the floor for any questions.